Her eyes remained dry when he said he knew everything. Not because she didn't feel anything, but because she couldn't believe the reckoning had truly come. A silence fell between them, heavy and fragile, like glass just before it shatters into 1,000 pieces. For 7 months, she had lived a double life, while he had been dying slowly, day by day, continuing to play the role of husband, father, a shadow of himself. And now, everything had collapsed. Greetings, my dear friend. I am very happy that you are watching my video, and I will be even happier if you subscribe to my channel. This will make me even happier. Let's get started. About 7 months ago, I stumbled upon the devastating truth that my wife had been unfaithful. The revelation shattered my world. I plunged into grief, cycling through shock, denial, and an aching sorrow that refused to let go. Day after day, I existed in a haze, barely functioning, weighed down by a heartbreak I couldn't shake. I never directly confronted her, but the toll it took on me was obvious. She couldn't have missed it. Still, she remained seemingly unmoved. Whether it was true indifference or just my perception, her lack of reaction only made things worse. Then, a few months ago, something inside me broke. I was done. Done with the heartache, done with the silence, done with pretending there was anything left to fight for. From that moment forward, I checked out, emotionally, mentally, completely. I made a conscious effort to avoid her, adjusting my schedule so we would barely see each other. When we did cross paths, our communication was stripped down to the bare minimum. I answered her questions with mechanical, clipped responses. Yes. No. Maybe. I don't know. I no longer made an effort to play the role of a husband. I even left documents from a divorce attorney in plain view, not bothering to conceal them. Subtlety was no longer necessary. My intentions couldn't have been clearer. Even the kids sensed the change. Their eyes filled with concern every time they looked at me. I gathered them gently and explained the situation as tenderly as I could. Your mom and I both love you very much, I told them. This isn't your fault. But sometimes adults can't stay married. She was sitting right there when I said it. She heard every word. And yet, she said nothing. No denial, no protest. Just silence. To me, her quiet acceptance said everything. Then, only a few days ago, something completely unexpected happened. I ran into someone I hadn't seen in years, Sabrina. We'd known each other from school, long before I ever met my wife. There had always been a subtle connection between us, an unspoken tension we never dared to explore. We'd share little moments, playful jokes, lingering touches, but I lacked the confidence back then to do anything about it. Before I found the courage, she moved away, vanishing from my life and leaving behind only what-ifs and faint memories. And now, after all these years, there she was. As soon as we began talking, it felt like no time had passed. The conversation was easy, natural, as if we'd only paused rather than parted. At one point, she tilted her head and gave me a familiar, soft smile. So, are you with anyone? I hesitated. It's complicated. Her face grew more serious. What kind of complicated? I took a breath, steadying myself. I'm married. But it's over. We just haven't finalized it yet. She looked at me for a moment, then nodded slowly. Thanks for being honest. Then she asked, So what happens now? I won't start anything until it's finished, I told her, firm and clear. I'm not someone who cheats. Her smile returned, warmer now. I respect that, she said. She reached into her purse, tore off a slip of paper, scribbled something, and handed it to me. Call me when you're free. As I took the note, our fingers brushed, and something sparked inside me, something I hadn't felt in a long, long time. She grinned playfully. I never ended up marrying anyone, by the way. Seriously? I asked, surprised. She nodded. Guess I never found the right guy. Then softer, she added, I'm really happy we ran into each other. I couldn't hide it. I felt a jolt of hope I hadn't known in ages. Meeting Sabrina didn't cause my decision, but it clarified everything. That encounter was the final nudge I needed to step forward. That same night, I returned home and sat in the living room, waiting. I must have looked like a madman, grinning to myself in the dim light. But I felt something I hadn't in what felt like forever. Peace. It was the moment everything turned. One chapter closing, a new one beginning. When she walked in, I gestured to the chair across from me. "Can we talk?" I asked. She gave me a wary look, but sat down. "What is it?" I exhaled slowly. "I've known about your affair for a while," I said, watching her face. She flinched, but I continued. "I figured you had to know I was aware. I haven't exactly been subtle. I stopped trying, and you didn't seem to care. And honestly, I don't either. Not anymore." Her hands knotted together in her lap, tense and trembling. "I want to see someone," I told her gently. "It's time for us to move on. This marriage is over. We need to make it official. Let's get divorced. Don't you agree?" I braced myself for calm acceptance, or perhaps quiet relief. But instead, she came undone. It wasn't just tears. It was as if her entire being fractured. She let out a cry so raw, so full of pain, it felt like it came from her soul. Her body shook as she wept, gasping between sobs. "Please, John, please, it didn't mean anything." It was a catastrophic failure in judgment, one I couldn't possibly excuse, yet somehow she still believed we could recover from it. Therapy, she said, might help. We could rebuild. I looked at her, utterly speechless. "You mean that?" I finally asked, my voice barely audible over the pounding in my ears. Her grip on my arm tightened. "Yes," she insisted. "I love you. I don't want this, us, to fall apart." "I don't want to lose you either." I pulled away from her grasp, slowly shaking my head. "Then why? If he meant nothing, if our family truly mattered to you, why go to him at all?" She had to have known it would wreck everything. She couldn't really believe this wouldn't destroy us. Could she? I watched as she collapsed in on herself, her body racked with sobs, words dissolving into unintelligible gasps. And still, I felt nothing, just a dull, lifeless fatigue. "If saving this marriage actually mattered to you," I said, my tone disturbingly calm, "you would have tried before you decided to sleep with someone else." "This can't be the end," she said, her head shaking with desperation, tears streaking down her face. "Please, John, we can still fix this. I was confused. I didn't know what I was doing, but I love you. I do." I cut her off, the words cold. "You never even told me something was wrong," I said. "You didn't say a word. I can't read minds. Whatever the problem was, I never even had the chance to fix it. But clearly you thought it was bad enough to go find someone else." She recoiled like I'd slapped her. I leaned in, my eyes locked on hers. "So tell me, what was it? What exactly was missing? What was broken enough that you couldn't come to me, that sneaking around behind my back seemed like the only solution?" Her mouth opened, but no words came, only ragged, broken sobs. I exhaled. "It had to be something massive, right?" I went on. "So big that a conversation wouldn't have been enough. So awful that you were willing to risk everything we'd built." I let the silence expand before I added, "Because that's what you did. You made a choice. You decided that whatever you were going through mattered more than our family." She buried her face in her hands, her voice barely audible. "I didn't think. I was selfish. I was stupid." "Yeah," I said, my tone flat and icy. "You were." Her head snapped up, panic shining in her eyes. "But I never stopped loving you," she cried. "John, I swear I never stopped." A bitter laugh escaped me, empty, hollow. "Don't say that. You don't get to say that. This isn't love. People who love you don't drag you through hell. They don't lie to you. They don't shatter your life. You keep insisting you love me, but your actions say something entirely different. She tried to speak again, another flood of apologies, excuses, explanations, but none of it made sense anymore. I rubbed my temple, feeling my patience fray. "This is going nowhere," I muttered, standing. "I'm calling your sister." She didn't stop me, just sat there trembling, sobbing so violently I thought she might fall apart completely. I stepped into the hallway, took out my phone, and made the call. Her sister answered on the second ring. "John?" "Yeah," I said with a sigh. "I need you to come over. Right now." "What happened?" she asked, worry already tightening her voice. "I told her it's done," I said straightforward. "She's not in a good place. I need you to take her." There was a brief silence. "I'll be there in 15. And she was, true to her word. I gave her the short version, bare bones, just the facts. She didn't seem shocked, just tired. She helped her off the couch, whispering soft reassurances as she led her toward the door. Then they were gone. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I could actually breathe. I don't even know what I'm hoping to find anymore. Some kind of validation? Closure? Maybe I just want to be sure I'm not losing my grip on reality. But the truth doesn't change. She had to have known what would happen. She had to understand what was at stake. Deep down, she must have wanted this to end, because no one makes a decision like that blindly. No one risks a marriage, a home, a life they built without realizing the cost. She's smart, beautiful, and until the affair, our life together had been good, really good. But that's all behind us now. That chapter's closed. I've moved forward. So why is she trying so hard now? Why the urgency to repair something she spent months tearing apart? What's driving this sudden desperation? What does she think she can salvage? What does she still think she has to gain? She couldn't actually believe we had a chance at reconciling. Not after everything, right? It had to be some kind of trap. But for what purpose? That part was still a mystery. I sank into a chair, elbows on my knees, fingers pressed against my temples, trying to untangle the mess crowding my thoughts. There was no denying her betrayal. It was undeniable, documented. In my state, infidelity strips any right to claim spousal support. Maybe that's what she's truly afraid of, being exposed and left with nothing. Or maybe her fear runs deeper. Maybe she's terrified I'll reach out to the wife of the man she slept with. That would explain her frantic attempts to feign concern, to act like she still had skin in the game. I leaned back and exhaled hard. None of it made sense. The more I tried to piece it together, the more I realized I was wasting time. I was spending energy dissecting her actions when I should have been centering myself on what really mattered. I reached for a pile of documents and started laying them out, each labeled: the children, co-parenting logistics, my marriage, Sabrina, questions for my wife. Every label carried its own weight, its own set of complexities. My mission was clear: define what truly mattered, name what couldn't be compromised, and figure out what still deserved my attention. The children. There was no ambiguity there. They were the priority. I tapped the page labeled Children and drew a heavy underline beneath it. No matter what mess existed between their mother and me, the kids didn't deserve to be caught in the wreckage. I made a silent promise to strengthen their support system. Therapy, group sessions, family counseling, whatever it took. I grabbed my phone and called my sister. "Hey, John," she answered, warm but wary. She knew this wasn't just a casual check-in. "I need your help," I said directly. "I want the kids surrounded by love, by people who make them feel secure. I need more stability around them." "Of course," she said without hesitation. "We'll be there for them. And for you." A knot in my chest loosened a little, like I'd finally come up for air. "Thank you. I'm also planning to talk with their teachers and coaches. I need to make sure they're fully supported." "That's a good idea," she replied. Then, after a pause, she asked gently, "And you? Are you okay?" I hesitated. I'm getting through. We both knew that wasn't the whole truth, but she didn't press. After hanging up, my eyes drifted to another note on my desk. DNA testing. The sight of it made my stomach turn, but I couldn't ignore it. I'd already taken the responsible steps. STI tests, protecting my health. But this was something else entirely. This was about truth, about answers, not just for me, but for them. If there was even a sliver of doubt about whether they were biologically mine, they deserved clarity. I booked the test. The confirmation email flashed on my screen like a warning light. My mind spiraled. What if they weren't mine? Would it change the way I felt? No. They were mine in every way that mattered. Still, I couldn't help but wonder, would they ever want to meet their biological father if it turned out I wasn't it? Would they see me differently if I kept silent? Would they feel betrayed if I didn't find out now while I still could? The not knowing felt like something sitting heavy on my chest. I couldn't rest until I had the truth. God. I hoped the test confirmed what I needed it to. But until then, the anxiety would gnaw at me. Before anything else, I spoke to their therapists. I needed their guidance on how to have the conversation, how to break something so delicate without causing more harm than they were already facing. When the time came, we sat down together. I looked at my children, my whole world, and gathered myself. There's something important we need to talk about, I said, my tone calm, deliberate. I know it's been a hard time lately. You might be feeling confused, and that's okay. I just want you to remember one thing. I'm always here. I'm your dad. I love you more than anything. That's never going to change. They stayed quiet, taking it all in. I repeated myself, making sure my words sank in. After a few moments, Lucy whispered, "Are you and Mom getting a divorce?" My heart clenched. "Yes, honey, we are." Daniel looked down, hands clenched in his lap. "What does that mean for us?" I reached forward, laying both hands on the table. "It means nothing about my love for you changes. I'll always be here. We'll work through everything together, one step at a time. Okay?" They nodded slowly, their faces etched with sorrow. I wanted to shield them, to undo it all, but that wasn't possible. The only thing I could do now was stay present, be steady, be their dad. Later that night, when the house was quiet again, I turned back to the paper marked marriage. Deep down, I already knew the answer. It had settled into me like stone, quiet, solid, and final. I came to a quiet, sobering truth. I would never be able to trust my wife again. And without trust, a relationship simply can't survive. My feelings for her had withered. This realization wasn't a sudden explosion. It seeped in slowly, subtly, until it became impossible to deny. Once my love for her had felt boundless, almost like a cornerstone of my identity. But she shattered it. Her betrayal left a wound deep within me. Something vital was lost, something irreplaceable. Maybe in another reality I could have mustered the will to rebuild. If things had gone differently, perhaps I would have wanted to try. But I didn't. I had no desire to rescue what had been broken. There was nothing inside me urging me to fix a marriage so profoundly damaged. Letting it go seemed like the only logical step. I needed space, freedom, a clean break. Whatever we once had no longer carried weight. I didn't want her in my life anymore. The affection I used to feel when I thought of her had been replaced by a dull, aching void, filled not with longing but with sadness and revulsion. Every memory of her stirred discomfort. Ending the marriage wasn't just on the table, it felt urgent, inevitable. I wanted it finalized with as little delay as possible. Maybe it wasn't wise to be stepping toward something new with Sabrina so quickly, but my world was unraveling, and dragging her into the chaos didn't seem fair. She deserved more. When I opened up to her about everything, she resisted the idea of retreating. "Life isn't clean," she said. "Let's figure it out." together. Her words resonated, but I still wasn't ready. As we spoke, I started to understand her guarded heart. Years back, she had been engaged, but her fiancé died in a sudden workplace accident. The loss devastated her. She'd gone on a few dates in the years since, but no one had truly touched her. To Sabrina, life was fleeting, and when something real arrived, you had to meet it with courage. I admired her strength, but I needed closure before I could embrace anything new. "I won't be unfaithful, even if it's just on paper," I told her. She respected that. I also explained the perception we risked if we didn't wait. "People could assume you were the reason my marriage ended," I said. "I don't want you carrying that burden." She agreed. We both decided it was best to pause, to wait until the dust had settled. And yet, the bond between us was undeniable. That conversation alone pushed close to emotional lines I hadn't meant to cross. To do things the right way, I needed to create distance. We both agreed. I'd focus on sorting my life out, and once I had, I'd reach out. Until then, space was necessary. With that settled, I turned to the harder task, confronting my wife. I sat down and made a list of values to guide me through it. I reminded myself of who I had been before everything fractured. I wanted to stay calm, to avoid cruelty. The goal wasn't blame, it was resolution. More than anything, I hoped we could still parent our children with dignity and cooperation. Still, I needed to understand. I needed to hear what she had been thinking, why she had done it, and what she envisioned going forward. I would be direct, but not manipulative. I had no intention of offering false hope to sway the outcome. My decision had already been made. I was committed to fairness. We would divide everything equally. Despite the betrayal and the pain she'd caused, to me, to our family, I couldn't pretend our entire story was a lie. I still valued what we had once shared, the laughter, the small joys, the family we built. That was how I wanted to remember her, not as someone who hurt me, but as the woman who had once made me happy. I couldn't let bitterness define me. Eventually, I would need to forgive, not for her sake, but for mine. It was time to release the past. Before her affair, I had genuinely believed we were strong. We had been affectionate, attentive, and open. I shared everything with her, and I thought she had done the same. But her choices proved otherwise. When Saturday came, I went to see her. Her sister had warned me she was in bad shape, and the moment I saw her, I understood. She looked wrecked, her eyes swollen and red, face blotchy and tired, hair unkempt. She looked like someone who had been slowly falling apart. Clearly, she hadn't been eating or sleeping. We sat down across from one another. I waited. She trembled noticeably. Oddly, I felt centered. Her pain was visible, but I didn't feel it the way I once would have. I watched her like a spectator to someone else's tragedy, aware but detached. In that moment, the truth was undeniable. Whatever love had once connected me to her was gone. She tried to speak several times, only to be overtaken by sobs. I stayed quiet. Her sister sat beside her, tears streaming, occasionally chastising her gently. It was clear she had seen this outcome coming and had tried to intervene. Eventually, my wife found her voice, and when she did, the apology came in waves. "I'm so sorry," she wept. "I don't have words for how much I regret this." I said nothing. She kept repeating it, her sorrow spilling out again and again. She didn't try to deflect responsibility or fabricate an excuse, and that caught me off guard. I had been bracing myself for some sort of justification, maybe a lie or an attempt to twist the facts, but there was nothing like that. Her sister, still wiping away tears that mixed grief with rage, turned to face me. "I warned her," she said bitterly. "Told her exactly how this would end, but she didn't want to listen." I squinted, confused. Warned her about what? Losing everything. Her sister let out a frustrated breath, shaking her head in disbelief. It happened to me. That's how I lost my fiancé. The revelation took me completely by surprise. I had no idea her sister had been unfaithful. My wife let out another strangled sob, her voice faltering as she spoke. That's when I started thinking, she said quietly. I began wondering if I could do it too and still keep my life intact. My heart sank, and the pit in my stomach deepened. So, it was intentional? I asked. She shook her head vigorously. Not at first, she insisted. It started with just thoughts. A lot of thoughts. Eventually, she met him. Her face crumpled as another wave of tears hit her. I didn't plan for any of this, she whispered through the sobs. I don't even know how to explain it. Her words sounded like those of a teenager in the throes of a first crush. I couldn't stop myself, she muttered. My jaw tightened. Couldn't stop yourself. She nodded miserably. I convinced myself it was nothing, just a fling. It didn't mean anything. I never thought it would hurt anyone. My fists clenched at my sides. You didn't think I'd ever find out? I asked, my voice chilling. She let out a faint, broken laugh. I was happy, John, she murmured so softly it was nearly a whisper. I was happy with you, with everything we had. I told myself I deserved this, that if you knew how happy I was, you'd even understand. She had rationalized it in her mind as temporary, something that wouldn't ruin what we had built. What she didn't know was that I had already discovered everything. It wasn't until I started pulling away, withdrawing emotionally, that she began to realize something was wrong. I thought everything was fine, she said, her voice thick with tears. I gave a dry, bitter laugh. Fine. You really thought that? I asked. She nodded, wiping her face with trembling fingers. I thought it was just a phase, that it would pass, and we'd go back to normal. She told me she ended it 6 weeks ago. The excitement had faded. The thrill was gone. She had blocked his number and even handed me her phone, offering it as proof. I took it from her, my hand steady, and scrolled through the contacts. When I unblocked his number, the messages flooded in, pleading, angry, desperate. I looked up at her, and she shrank under the intensity of my gaze. He clearly didn't get the message, I muttered as I read the messages. She swallowed hard, her voice shaky. I've been trying to make things right with you, John. I thought... She hesitated. I thought if you could just see how much I still love you, we could find our way back. I shook my head slowly. You thought we could rebuild from this? That we'd come out stronger? After a long pause, she nodded. Yes. I leaned forward, lowering my voice, making it sharp. That night, when I told you I knew, when you looked into my eyes, what did you see? Her lip trembled, and the tears returned full force. I saw the end, she whispered. I saw that I had ruined everything. I leaned back, exhaling sharply through my nose. Then why are we still here having this conversation? Her hands twisted nervously in her lap. Because I have to try, John. I have to at least try to save what we had. For our family. I closed my eyes briefly, forcing a semblance of calm over the storm inside me. Then I asked the question that had been haunting me from the very beginning. What were you thinking? What made you believe this was okay? That you had the right to do this? To me? To our kids? She sobbed harder, shaking her head frantically. I don't know. Bullshit, I snapped. You had a reason. People don't just wake up one day and decide to destroy their life. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. She just stared at me, desperate, as though waiting for me to provide the reason she couldn't find for herself. That's when it finally hit me. There would never be an answer that made sense. No explanation could ever make this feel right. I sighed deeply. You know what? It doesn't matter, because nothing you say now will ever make it right. And with that, she collapsed, completely undone, sobbing so violently her entire body shook. I felt nothing at all. No anger, no compassion, no love. just a hollow emptiness. Today, I achieved what I needed: closure. I wasn't really speaking to her. I was talking to myself. I had to let out how deeply I had been hurt by her actions, how much pain she had caused me. She lifted her eyes to meet mine, her lips quivering. "I know, and I'm so sorry. I'll never forgive myself for what I did," she whispered. I nodded in acknowledgement. "Good," I answered, my voice steady. The truth, though, was undeniable. This was all her doing. She had destroyed everything. Our marriage was in ruins. Our children would grow up in a broken home because of her choices. She recoiled, as if I had physically struck her. But I felt no pity. The truth was harsh, but it was necessary. She needed to hear it. Her hands reached out to me, trembling. "Please, John, please, give me another chance. I'll do anything, anything at all." I fixed my gaze on her, and for the first time I saw the full scope of what she had done, not just to our marriage, but to the way I viewed her. "I don't believe you," I said, my tone flat. "Not a single word," she begged, desperation evident in her voice. "What can I do to fix this? Just tell me what I can do to make it right." "You broke it," I replied bluntly. "If you don't even know how to fix it, why would you expect me to have a solution?" She swallowed, struggling to keep her composure. "John, please, just tell me what I can do." "Anything," she pleaded, her voice cracking with emotion. I shook my head. "If you were in my place, what would you say to that?" She hesitated, her hands twisting together in nervousness as she searched for a response. But no answer came. Our painful back and forth continued, each moment stretching into eternity. Finally, she exhaled shakily and admitted, "If the roles were reversed, I don't think I could forgive this either." I nodded. "Then you understand." I told her I had already been tested for STIs, and I planned to get a paternity test for the kids. When the words left my mouth, she shattered, breaking into uncontrollable sobs that lasted for nearly 20 minutes. I stood there, motionless, watching her unravel. When she finally regained her composure, her face was swollen, her eyes red and filled with tears. "John, I swear this was the only time. I've never done anything like this before," she cried. I crossed my arms, my gaze cold. "And why should I believe that?" She hesitated, her mouth opening and closing, clearly unable to form the words she needed. After more silence, she finally admitted, "I guess you have no reason to believe me. If I were in your shoes, I'd probably think the same." I moved on. "Does the other person's wife know?" She shook her head, her eyes lowering in shame. I sighed. "She deserves to know." "I know," she whispered. I met her gaze directly. "So, are you going to tell her, or should I?" Her lip trembled. "John, if I tell her, if I go to HR and admit everything, would you consider reconciling? Maybe marriage counseling?" I answered without a second thought. "No." She flinched as if struck again. I kept my voice steady. "But it might help you regain some of my respect." Her shoulders sagged, but she nodded. "Okay, I'll tell her. I'll tell everyone. I'll go to HR. I'll do whatever it takes." I exhaled, running a hand over my face. "I don't really believe you." She reached for me, her voice trembling. "I swear, John, I'll never be with anyone else again. I'll never stop trying to get you back, even if it takes the rest of my life." I didn't believe her. But by now, I said nothing. The conversation was growing pointless. Then she made an offer that churned my stomach with disgust. "What if we had a one-sided open marriage?" she blurted, desperation in every syllable. "You could be with whoever you wanted. I'd stay faithful to you. You'd have access to all my communications 24/7. Anything, John, anything." I stared at her for a long time before responding. "I already talked to Sabrina, and I'm waiting." She blinked, confusion crossing her face. "Waiting? For what?" I sighed deeply. "For the divorce. I don't want to cheat. I don't want an open relationship. It would hurt her, and I don't want to hurt anyone else the way you've hurt me." Her eyes began to well up again, but I wasn't done. "And I don't want to be your jailer," I continued. "I don't want to be spying on you, constantly suspicious. That's not a healthy relationship. I'm not interested in intimacy without a deeper connection," I added, my voice firm. "Sex for the sake of sex doesn't mean anything to me. If I needed that, I could handle it myself. I don't need a partner for that." At this point, we were both drained, emotionally and physically. We had been talking for more than 5 hours, and for most of that time, my wife was in tears. Sometimes quietly crying, sometimes shaking uncontrollably. Her face was swollen and blotchy, her voice raw from the endless sobbing. But there was nothing left to say. The conversation had reached its conclusion. It was over. I gazed at her, keeping my tone steady but firm. "The love I once felt for you has disappeared. I don't even recognize the person standing before me. Our marriage, our family. Those things ended because of your actions." She shook her head violently, tears pouring down her face. "No." "John, please. You can't undo what's been done," she begged. "The only way to prevent this was by not starting the affair 7 months ago. That was your decision, and these are the consequences. I no longer want to fix this." "I don't want you back," I said coldly. "I don't want to keep living in this pain." She sobbed harder, clutching her arms as though trying to hold herself together. I exhaled, overwhelmed by everything. "I think it's time we take a break from each other. We need distance, some time apart, and a chance to gain a fresh perspective." "I've already filed for divorce," I said firmly. "I'm sure about this decision." Her whole body tensed in shock. "John, please don't do this. Don't leave me." "The only thing left for us is co-parenting," I replied. "I'll agree to family therapy for the kids, but beyond that, I don't want to interact with you anymore." That was the moment she completely broke down. She collapsed, trembling, as her sobs turned to choking gasps. "No, no, no," she repeated, as if trying to change the reality of what was happening. "Please, John, don't," she begged. I stood up, feeling suffocated by the weight of it all. Just as I was about to walk away, I saw her stagger unsteadily, her hands reaching for her face. Suddenly, blood began flowing from her nose, gushing steadily. Her breath became shallow with panic, and she reached out toward me before collapsing to her knees. I rushed to catch her, preventing her from hitting the ground. Her sister screamed in horror, "Oh my God, John, help her!" Without thinking, I acted instinctively, lifting her into my arms and rushing her to the car, her sister following closely behind. The drive to the hospital was filled with tension. Her sister wept quietly in the front seat while I focused on the road. My wife lay in the back seat, pale and barely conscious. I stayed at the hospital until I was sure she was stable. By the time we returned home, the news had already spread. That morning, I received a call from the other woman's wife. As soon as I picked up, her voice was tight with barely contained rage. "Is it true?" she demanded. I sighed, my voice calm as I confirmed, "Yes." There was a long silence on the other end. Then she exhaled sharply. "Do you have proof?" "I do," I replied, sending her the evidence. A few minutes later, her response came through, "He's gone. I kicked him out." She called me again almost immediately. "John, I need to see everything. I've suspected it for a long time, but now I need to know the full truth." I paused for a moment before answering, "Let's sit down for dinner tomorrow." She hesitated before asking, "Can we talk now?" I rubbed my temples in exhaustion, speaking into the phone. "Maybe later." "Some of her friends and relatives have been calling me, yelling at me, telling me to give her another chance. They act like I'm the one who ruined everything, like I'm the villain here." "You're really going to throw everything away over one mistake?" I mimicked, recalling her cousin's words from an earlier call. I gritted my teeth. One mistake? She made that mistake every time she met up with him over the past 7 months. That wasn't a mistake, I added, my voice cold. That was a choice. They keep saying, "You still love her. You have a family. You can work through this," I continued. I laughed bitterly. Love? Whatever love I had for her died the moment I learned about what she was doing behind my back, to me, to our family. She destroyed it. Now I'm just picking up the pieces. The person on the other end scoffed, muttering something under their breath before hanging up. That was the third call like that today, but I couldn't stop thinking. Why prolong the pain? It was better to end it now, so we could all heal and move on, separately, but with new lives to build. There was nothing left worth saving. The DNA results came back, confirming the children were mine. 5 months later, the divorce was finalized. The whole process felt surreal, even after all the turmoil, the arguments, the tears. The finality of it all was oddly quiet. I gave my ex-wife her share of the assets, and with that, we were done. The mountain of paperwork is now behind me, and the endless court sessions are just a memory. What remains is simply two people who once shared a life, each going their separate ways. The children made their decision to live apart from her, a choice they came to on their own, with no encouragement or persuasion from me. She's constantly weighed down by a cloud of sorrow. One night, as I was tucking Lucy into bed, she spoke quietly, as if letting go of something heavy. Lucy isn't one for many words, but when she does speak, it's clear there's something deep beneath the surface. "She takes away all the happiness, Dad," she told me. Daniel, sitting quietly across the room, nodded in silent agreement. "Yeah," he added, "it's like she wants us to feel as miserable as she does." I was at a loss for words. I didn't want them to harbor any ill will toward their mother, but I couldn't ignore how drained and burdened they felt in her presence. In the meantime, Sabrina has become a presence in their lives that I never expected, taking on a maternal role in ways I never imagined. The kids have grown so fond of her. They laugh together, share moments with her that they once reserved only for their mom. At first, it tugged at my conscience, but now I only feel grateful. Seeing my children happy, loved, and secure, that's all that matters. One evening, as Sabrina and I were setting the table for dinner, Lucy looked up at me and said, "I'm glad you found her, Dad." She flashed a sincere smile, one that I hadn't seen in ages. "She makes us happy." Those words hit me harder than anything else. Sabrina and I are getting married in 3 months, and the kids couldn't be more excited. As for my ex-wife, she's finally taken the step of seeking therapy. I called her recently to wish her well, and though she sounded distant, she thanked me. "The kids don't want to see me," she confessed, her voice shaky. "I understand," she added, her words heavy with resignation. I told her I understood. I didn't know what else to say. I couldn't force the children to spend time with her, but I knew the distance between them had everything to do with her actions. It seems like she's starting to realize the depth of their feelings now. Because of that, she's begun to give them the space they need, stepping back and allowing them the room to breathe. Our story comes to an end here. Share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for taking the time to watch. If you enjoyed this story, please check out other videos on this channel. See you soon, my dear friend.